Hello everybody and welcome to Snake Supervisor training. My name is Sienna and I am a conservation technician with the Land Between charity. And today I'm going to be taking you through the guidelines and protocols for surveying and reporting snakes that you come across on the roads. So let's get started. Alrighty, so first just a quick outline about what we're going to cover in this presentation. First, we'll go over what exactly is involved in surveying for snakes on roads. We'll go over what will be included in your Snake Supervisor package when you register as a road surveyor on the Land Between website. We'll briefly touch on an available training webinar in Snake ID. Then we'll go into some safety, the best times to survey, what you'll need to survey. We'll just briefly go over the species at risk snakes that we have here in the Land Between. We'll go over how to download and use the iNaturalist app, because that's what we'll be using to be reporting the snakes we come across on roads. Then we'll go over the road surveying procedure, and then we'll just briefly talk about what to do if you happen to come across a turtle while you're out on the roads looking for snakes. Alright, so what's involved in road surveying for snakes? This protocol is designed to be either active or passive, meaning if you happen to come across a snake while you're out driving to the grocery store or driving to the lake or just out and about doing your daily activities, you can pull over and record that snake. Or if you wanted to take a more active approach, you can physically set aside some time when you're going to go out looking for snakes. This protocol can be used in either way. But whether you decide to take a more active or passive approach to surveying, or if you want to do a little bit of both, this protocol essentially involves pulling over when you see a snake on the road, identifying the snake, if necessary, getting that snake out of harm's way, and then finally reporting the snake, either to the START hotline, to our friends at Scales Nature Park, or using the iNaturalist app, and that'll depend on what species of snake you happen to come across. So when you register as a snake supervisor to do the road surveys for snakes, which you may or may not have already done, but if you haven't, I highly encourage you to do so by going to the Citizen Science page of the Land Between website. But when you register, you will be sent via email a volunteer package that will include three things. Number one, it will have a copy of the road surveying guidelines, so step-by-step process of what to do when you come across a snake on the road. It will also include a Snake ID decision tree, which is a tool to help you identify the snakes that you come across. So essentially you'll just answer the questions in the flowchart and it'll point you in the direction of the snake you might be looking at. The package will also include Snake ID sheet, which just provides a little bit more detail about each of the 12 snake species we have in the Land Between, as well as a few pictures of each of them. So you can use those two ID tools to identify whatever snakes you come across. There is a separate presentation going over how to identify each of the 12 snakes found in the Land Between bioregion, and that's available on the Snake Supervisors page of the Land Between website. I highly encourage that you take the time to work through this presentation, as it'll help get you better prepared to identify some of the cool critters that you might come across on the roads. Alright, next we'll get into some safety basics. Because, as I said, these surveys can either be intentional, you're going to go out driving for 20 minutes, half an hour, and see if you can find any snakes to report, or they can be a little more casual and you're just reporting something that you happen to come across. I encourage you to keep these general safety items in your car with you at all times in the event that you happen upon a snake. So these safety items include proper clothing, which includes closed-toed shoes, long pants, and a high visibility vest, because if you find a snake on the side of the road, you'll be out on the side of the road and you want to make sure you're properly visible. It's also not a bad idea to have something like a shovel or a big stick that you keep in your car in the event that the snake is in danger in some way. You can use the shovel or the stick to just gently nudge the snake out of the way of oncoming traffic or whatever it might be. That way you're not touching the snake, which we don't want either for you or for the snake, but you can still get it out of harm's way. Next, some more road-specific safety. If you come across a snake on the side of the road, we ask that you only pull over if and when it is safe to do so. We ask that you do not stop in any active lane of traffic. If it is safe to do so, carefully slow down, put your four-ways on, and pull over. And ensure that your car is as far off the road as possible. And then when you are out on the roads, we encourage you to be vigilant and alert at all times and always paying attention to oncoming traffic. And we'd also just like to remind you to ensure that you close all of the doors of your vehicle prior to walking away from it to go deal with the snake, just so that you're not introducing any hazards by being pulled over on the side of the road. Okay, so next, a little bit of safety about snakes in general. It's important to note that all snakes are shy creatures with very poor eyesight, and they'll only strike or bite in defense. So if you don't bother them, they won't bother you. That being said, some snakes will put on a show and do their best to intimidate you if they are scared. One very good example of that is the eastern hognose snake, which you can see in the picture here. We like to call her the drama queen of the land between, because when this snake feels threatened, it puts on the most impressive show of all. It will puff out the sides of its head to look like a cobra, which you can also see in this picture. And of course, we don't have cobras in Ontario. So that's step one. If that doesn't work, they might give a couple bluff strikes, so pretend to strike at you. And then if that doesn't work, they'll play dead. They will flip over on their backs, they'll writhe all around, they'll stick their tongues out, they'll emit this really disgusting smelling odor, all in an effort to make themselves look dead, because who wants to eat something that's dead? So quite dramatic, but effective. And some snakes are pretenders. So some snakes, when they're scared, they'll try to trick you into thinking that they're something that they're not. So, for example, the eastern fox snake and milk snake will sometimes rattle their tails in an effort to trick predators into thinking they're a venomous rattlesnake, but they're not. So it's important to use all of the tools that you're given. So the Snake ID decision tree, the Snake ID sheet, the Snake ID training presentation, all of these tools to make sure you're making a proper identification, or do your best to make a proper identification and know what you're dealing with. Next, a bit about safety regarding the Massasauga rattlesnake specifically. The Massasauga rattlesnake is Ontario's only venomous snake. It is very shy and timid, and it will only bite as a last resort if it feels threatened. That being said, if you live near or are in Massasauga habitat, you should take the necessary precautions to make sure you're protecting yourself, but also the snakes. So be sure to pay attention to where you're walking to avoid accidentally stepping on it or any other wildlife for that matter. Wear closed-toed shoes and long pants, and don't put your hands under or in anything that you can't see into or underneath. If you do happen to encounter a Massasauga, be sure to keep a respectful distance and don't attempt to touch it or pick it up. If you are bitten by a Massasauga, it's important not to panic or do anything too strenuous. Just call 911 and seek immediate medical attention. It's worth noting that only 2 deaths have occurred in Ontario in the past 50 years as a result of a Massasauga bite, and both were the result of not seeking proper medical attention. So again, these are really shy animals, and if you don't bother them, they won't bother you. And then finally, on the safety side of things, just a bit of safety for the animals. We ask that you don't attempt to catch or harm any of the snakes or other animals you might come across in your surveys. However, if a snake is in the road or in danger, we ask that you do attempt to move it out of harm's way if it is safe to do so for yourself. But again, not by touching the snake. We ask that you use either a stick or maybe a snow shovel that you have in your car to just kind of gently nudge the snake along and out of harm's way. Okay, so when should you be carrying out these surveys? The answer is anytime. Like I said, you can be a bit more active about it and decide, yeah, today I'm going to go out driving and looking for snakes for half an hour, or it can be anytime you're on the road for whatever reason. If you're driving somewhere, if you're biking along the road, if you're taking a walk and you come across a snake, then you can report it as well. That being said, the best time to find a snake on the road is between about 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. When the air temperature is between about 20 and 30 degrees. But again, anytime you feel like going out or you happen to come across a snake is a good time to be doing a snake survey. Alrighty, so what will you need in order to carry out these surveys? Number one, you need a copy of the road surveying guidelines, which will be sent to you when you register as a volunteer. You also need your Snake ID decision tree and Snake ID sheet, which will also be sent to you when you register. You need a camera or a phone with a camera. I think most people nowadays have their cameras built right into their phones, but if you don't, a handheld camera would be fine. You also need the iNaturalist app downloaded and ready to use on your phone or iPad if you prefer. We're going to go over how to use iNaturalist in a little later on in this presentation. You also need either a phone with a GPS or a handheld GPS unit, whatever is easier for you. You need proper clothing, which, like we said, is gloves, closed-toed shoes, long pants, and a safety vest, a high-vis vest of some sort. Again, because these can be very casual encounters. If you keep all that stuff in your car, you'll be all set to go when you come across a snake. And then finally, of course, you need your Snake Supervisor badge so that it's all very official. And then just before we get into how to use iNaturalist and what the actual protocol is, I wanted to briefly go over the 4 species at risk snakes that we have here in the land between. Because if you come across one of these 4 snakes, what you do will be a little bit different than if you come across a non-species at risk snake. So the 4 species at risk snake to be aware of, and the only 4 that we have here in the land between are, from left to right, the eastern hognose snake, the Massasauga rattlesnake, the eastern fox snake, and the eastern ribbon snake. Like I said, when you register, you'll be sent a Snake ID decision tree and Snake ID sheet that will help you determine if you've come across one of these snakes. And we'll go over what to do if you come across one of these compared to what if you just come across a non-species at risk snake. All right, so as I said, we will be using iNaturalist to do most of the reporting for any snakes that you come across on the road. So I'll just quickly go over how to download and set up an account with iNaturalist. So you can download the app from the App Store or the Google Play Store. For the purposes of this example, I'll show you how to do it from the App Store, but this is what the icon looks like when you type in iNaturalist into the search bar. So you download the app, create an account with a username and password, and then what we ask that you do is to join the Biodiversity of the Land Between Ecotone project. That way, any snake reportings that you make will go into one kind of folder, and it's easy for us to access on the back end later on. So in order to do that, after you've made an account and signed in and you're in the app, click on More in the bottom right hand screen. And then from there, you'll be taken to this next screen and you'll click on Projects. And in the search bar of the projects page, type in Biodiversity of the Land Between Ecotone and then click Join. And then you'll be a member of that project, and it'll be easy for you to find when you make a sighting, so you can add your sighting to that project. And after these steps, you're all set to use iNaturalist. And then to report a snake using iNaturalist when you come across one, open up the app and click from the home screen, click on Observe, which is circled in red there, just at the bottom center of um, the first screenshot. And then the first thing you'll be prompted to do is take a photo. And I encourage you to take as many as you can and try to make sure that they're as clear as possible, so that other people can get a good look at what you've seen. To input the name of the snake species, in the What Did You See section, search for the name of the species. The app will also make suggestions to you on what it might be, so that can help with the ID as well. And then the date and location should automatically be input into the app, but if it's not, you can put that information in there as well. And then in the notes section, right here, you can add in any other relevant information about your sighting. So you could put in what the snake was doing when you saw it. Was it dead or injured? Was it eating something? Information like that. And then to add your sighting to the Biodiversity of the Land Between Eco project, like we talked about on the last slide, before you click share, click on projects, which is right here, circled in red. And it'll take you to a choose project screen, and because you've already added the Biodiversity of the Land Between Ecotone project to your list, you can just select that, and then it'll take you back to this home screen, or to this screen here, and you just click share, and your sighting will be added to the database. Alrighty, so let's get into the actual procedure for when you come across a snake. So if you've already watched the webinar on how to do backyard snake monitoring using artificial cover objects, you're already familiar with the flowchart system that we're using, but if not, that's also fine. Inside your protocol, there will be a series of flowcharts that you follow through depending on the situation. So we'll just work our way through, starting from the top. So you see a snake on the road. Great. Carefully pull over if it is safe to do so and approach the snake, but keep a respectful distance. If you can, take some photos. And then you need to ask yourself, is the snake safe on the side of the road, or is it in the middle of the road or in some kind of immediate danger? If it's in danger, we ask that you move the snake out of the road or out of danger by gently nudging it with a stick or a shovel or something that you have. Gently being the key word here, and get it out of harm's way. If it is safe, then we can move on to the next step, which is to attempt to ID the snake, which we'll talk about in the next slide. But while we're here, I just want to point out these flags here that we have in this flowchart. Those are just to refer you to relevant sections of the road surveying protocol. So if you see one of these flags, it's not a bad idea to just flip to that section of the protocol. So section A in this case is the safety section. So that'll just be to refresh your memory on all the safety protocols we went over. And here this refers you to section E, which we'll get into in a second. Alright, so we've taken photos of the snake that we found. We've made sure it's not in any kind of immediate danger. Now we're ready to try to ID it. So as I said, your volunteer package will include a snake ID decision tree, which will look something like this. And essentially you can just work through the tree asking yourself these questions, and it will point you in the direction of the species of snake that you might be seeing. So for example, you start at the top, you found a snake, cool. And then the first question to ask is it striped, all one color, or blotched? So let's say the snake I found is striped. The next question is, does it have more than one stripe? Yes, my snake has more than one stripe. And does it have a white spot in front of its eye? If yes, you're looking at an eastern ribbon snake. If no, you're looking at a common garter snake. And these numbers next to each of the snakes refer you to the number that they're listed as in the quick snake ID sheet, which I'll be going over in a second. Another thing to point out in this flow chart is that sometimes the chart will indicate please try again, and that's because either the snake you're looking at is kind of tricky to ID and maybe we've made a mistake in going through the flowchart, so you can try starting over again and working your way through it, answering the questions a bit differently. Or if you like, you can text a photo of that snake to the START hotline, and the number is listed there. And our friends at Scales Nature Park would be happy to help you try to identify that snake. Another thing to point out in this flowchart is these flags. So just like the flags in the protocol flowchart, these flags here in the ID tree point you to relevant sections of the guidelines document. So all of these flags labeled A will point you to relevant safety sections, just as a reminder while you're going through the flowchart. And then these flags I or F will point you to relevant sections that just give a little bit of information and offer some help if you need it. And then, as I said, your welcome package will also include a snake ID sheet that will have photos and a brief description of each of the 12 species of snake found in the land between. So you can use this document in addition to the snake ID decision tree to help you identify the snakes that you're finding. All right, so you have found a snake, you've photographed it, you've identified it, and now you're ready to get back to the protocol flowchart. So the next question after identifying the snake is the snake you're seeing on the list of SAR snakes listed in section E of this protocol? So like I said, if you have found a SAR snake, what you do is going to be a little bit different than if you found a non-SAR snake. And just as a reminder, like we said before, those 4 SAR snakes are the eastern hognose snake, the eastern ribbon snake, the eastern fox snake, and the Massasauga rattlesnake. So if the snake you found is one of those SAR snakes, you're going to go to the left in this protocol, in this flowchart, sorry. But if it's not, then you'll go to the right. So let's say we found a SAR snake. We'll continue down here. The next step is to take a GPS point in decimal degrees for the area that you found the snake. Then we're going to ask that you text a photo or photos of the snake and the GPS location to the START hotline at 705-955-4282. After you text, we would like you to ask yourselves, are you east or west of Bancroft? The town of Bancroft. If you are west of Bancroft, we're going to ask that you follow up that text that you just made to the START hotline with a call and wait for further instruction. So depending on where you found the snake, what condition the snake is in, what species the snake is, the folks at START might ask you to do a few additional steps. However, if you are east of Bancroft, you do not need to call the START hotline, and you can just go ahead and report that snake sighting in the iNaturalist app under the Biodiversity of the Land Between Ecotone project, like we talked about in the previous slides. After you have called the START hotline, if you're west of Bancroft, we ask that you wait and hold off on reporting it in iNaturalist just until you hear what the folks over there would like you to do. But once they give you the go-ahead, you can go ahead and report it in iNaturalist. If the snake you found is not a species at risk snake, so it's not one of those 4 that we went over, then the next question to ask yourself is it alive or dead? If the snake is alive, which we hope it is, you can go ahead and report your sighting in iNaturalist. If the snake is dead, we just ask that you move the body off the road and into the ditch just to avoid double counting. All right, so once you've completed all of these steps, depending on the situation you find yourself in, you can return to your vehicle safely and continue on your drive when it's safe to do so. And then if you come across another snake while you're out surveying or just driving from A to B, you can repeat the steps outlined in this flowchart. The last thing I'd like to go over is what to do if you come across a turtle while you're out on the roads, either purposely surveying for snakes or otherwise. What we ask at the Land Between and Turtle Guardians is if you come across a turtle of any species that you pull over. If it's attempting to cross the road, you help it cross the road by moving it in the direction that it is traveling. and then taking the time to report that turtle, either in the Turtle Guardians app, which is free to download from wherever you get your apps, or if you don't have the Turtle Guardians app and you would rather not download it, you can also report it in iNaturalist, which you would already have for carrying out this protocol. So if you come across any turtle, we'd like you, again, to pull over and report it on the Turtle Guardians app or iNaturalist. But more specifically, if you see any of these 4 scenarios, so that's a nesting turtle, an injured turtle, a Blandings turtle, or a spotted turtle, both of which are pictured here, Blandings and spotted, we asked you to go one step further, and that is to take a picture of the turtle as well as the GPS coordinates of where you found it, and text that picture and location to the START hotline. So that's that same number we've been using throughout this protocol, which is 705-955-4284. Roads pose a significant threat to Ontario's turtles, so any and all help that you can provide them, even if it's as simple as calling this number when you see one of these 4 things, it's a huge help, and it's not insignificant. And if you're interested about learning more about Ontario's turtles, how to identify each of the 8 species, or if you're interested in learning about what the Land Between and Turtle Guardians does with regards to turtles, or maybe you're interested in participating in some citizen science surrounding turtles, all of that information can be accessed on the Turtle Guardians website at turtleguardians.com. So you can either just Google turtleguardians.com, or you can access that website from the main landing page of the Land Between website as well. And that brings us to the end of this presentation. Thank you so much for taking the time to work through this training webinar. If you have any questions about this presentation or the Snake Supervisor program as a whole, or anything to do with turtles and the Turtle Guardians program, please don't hesitate to contact us. You can reach us by email at citizensciencetlb@gmail.com, or by phone in the office at 705-457-1222.